we've already talked about how life is difficult. And so why do people want to make their life, why do they want to handicap themselves? Right? There are certain ways that people literally handicap themselves and make things way more difficult than they need to be. And one of those things is by doing what I said in that tweet, right? I said, a great way to handicap yourself is to limit, who you're inspired by, based on them having the same race or sex as you or something like that. And that's the truth because firstly, there are great people, there are also terrible people, but there are great people of every category, all these immutable categories, right? Anyone who exists in the real world is aware that there are great people of different ethnicities, skin colors, nationalities, whether they're male, they're female, they're straight, they're gay, whatever. There are wonderful people out there who could potentially be friends, who could be mentors, who could be people who could teach you something, who could be people who help you, entertain you, whatever it is. And so to obsessively and unnecessarily limit your scope, whether that's your friendship group or the businesses that you buy products from, or the people who you allow to inspire you and motivate you, or whatever, to just one of those categories, right? If you're a woman and you only sort of allow yourself to be inspired by other women, you're artificially limiting yourself because there are lots of men who could teach you stuff and who could help you and who could inspire you and who are willing to, right? Same with if you're a man, right? I say it more because you tend to see that more with like, the kind of feminist angle of like, oh, women need to be in these certain positions, right? But similarly, if you're a man, right, why not be inspired by a great woman who is kicking butt in whatever it is that you want to do? I'm inspired by tons of women. I'm inspired by white people. I'm inspired by Asian people, black people, whatever. Like it's so irrelevant. I'm just inspired by people, right? And my
Right.
my friendships, my acquaintances, the people I talk to, the people I'm friends with, it's just, it's not a thing. It's like, what's your character and what is the sort of, I guess, value that you're offering to the world. And if we're on board and I like what you're saying or I like what you're doing or whatever, then awesome. Like let's connect, let's inspire. And that's how you move forward because yeah, I think we're both super big on personal responsibility and all that, but we also recognize, no man or woman is an island, right? We're not just little atomized beings who don't influence each other and we don't talk to each other and we don't socialize, etc. Right? We all influence and impact each other. And so what you want, if you want to be successful, you want to have the best people, right? It's a bit the same like when you talk about diversity with like hiring or whatever, right? Like you want the best people, right? I want the best friends in the world. I want the best podcast guests on my show. As a musician, I want to work with the best producers. I want to work with the best rappers, the best singers. I just want to work with like great people who are doing great things, right? Imagine if I was like, oh, that person's really, I really want to have that person on my podcast, but they're the wrong gender. I want to have that person on the podcast, but
Yeah.
they don't have the right amount of melanin. It sounds insane, but
Yeah.
there are people who do this. They limit themselves. They limit themselves. They won't follow that person or they won't engage with this person or whatever because there's some immutable characteristic which they think, oh, there's some kind of artificial barrier there, and it's such a limiting belief and a limiting behavior. And I mean, most people don't do this. I think at this stage, I think in the past it used to be extremely common, right? Right. That's if you it used to be extremely common for people to very much stick to their own kind, as they say, and view anyone who's outside of their say race, to use that term, as with some hostility, or this person is lesser than or whatever. And it's like it's stupid for a lot of reasons. It's stupid for a lot of reasons, but even from a selfish perspective, right? Even from a selfish perspective, it's stupid because it actually limits you, right? It limits your own potential, it limits your own growth. Like, beyond the moral issues with it and the discrimination, whatever, like it's also foolish. Just like, for example, in the USA, like, I'm not a US history expert, but you know, part of the reason why they even implemented things like Jim Crow laws was because from an employer perspective, employers recognize that they want the best employees at the sort of best value rate that they can get them for. So the government actually had to enforce those laws, because without those laws, you know, capitalism is a great way to kill off prejudice. Right? If you actually allow the free market capitalism to work, then if you're an employer, and even if the employer has some racial biases, but he's like, man, like this young black guy is a great worker, right? He'll still want to hire because it's the person working. So that's why they even needed to implement those laws from the top to stop people doing that. Because if they let the free market do its own thing and they let people actually mix and not force them to segregate, then they'll actually start to realize it won't be immediate, but over time, number one, on like a social and a friendship level, they'll start to realize, oh, okay, oh, those black people aren't as bad as I thought. Oh, okay, those white people aren't as bad as I thought, right? And and then also from a market perspective, it's also just the sensible thing to do, because if you know say for example, I do run a business. I don't have employees yet, but say I run a business and I decide to discriminate against a group of people. I just say, okay, you know what? I refuse to work with women, and I refuse to employ any women. My competitor who is not biased and who does not have that prejudice is going to blow me out the water, right? Because he's got access to the whole pool of talent, and I've decided to just arbitrarily cut off 50% of it. And that's going to have an impact.